Hello and welcome to What Keeps You Awake.tv. It's time again to dive into the hustles, the hurdles, and the highs that keep small business leaders up at night. I'm your host, David Hooser, and I'm thrilled to welcome today's guest, Stacie Garlieb. Stacie has leveraged her experience in recruitment to build a successful business, helping students and adults navigate the career search process. Stacie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
As am I. Well, let's get started then with our foundational questions. So tell me, as an entrepreneur in the EDU space and an aspiring master chef, what keeps you awake late at night?
I think the biggest thing I worry about is staying current with the trends. There's so much development in EDU in terms of career search, and candidates that are going into job search these days have a myriad of different processes they have to do, resources they have available to them, but they're constantly changing. You know, if I look at the landscape from 7 years ago to now, it's changed so much. So really staying current.
So when you say those changes, are you talking about the platforms they use to present themselves or to prepare themselves? I mean, or is it just the style or the...
It's a myriad of things. It's as easy as, how do I write my resume? Do I use a chat bot?
Right.
Do I use AI at all? Do I have a career coach do it for me? Do I find someone on LinkedIn to edit it for me? To everything from the interview process itself. You know, back in 2015, not a lot of us were doing video interviewing.
Right.
And then the pandemic hits, and that's all we could do. So having the skills and the knowledge to be able to pivot and understand all the ways that you might be recruited by a potential employer is really where I stay awake at night, making sure that I'm teaching the students everything they need to know.
Sounds good. And I hear there's even courses now that universities are putting courses on interviewing because the video, time that we had and during COVID, post-COVID, a lot of people forgot how to dress up and present themselves in a live interview.
Yeah.
And what to say, or like you said on the resume, typing a resume like you type a social media post.
Exactly.
That's not going to get you that optimal outcome in a interview.
Yeah, and those courses are very valuable. I think what's important, though, for students, whether they're at the high school or the college level or even grown adults in the workforce, to realize is the courses are going to give you some basics, but you really have to do the work. So you need to practice.
Right.
You need to find, I always say, don't find a family friend. Find someone who really may not like you very much. Practice with them to interview, because they're going to have a critique of your answer that's going to be a little more real,
more direct,
more constructive.
Right.
They're going to tell you, you said 15 times, or they're going to say, you basically gave a Miss America South Carolina answer. What was that all about? So I think that's important that the candidates realize that they have to do the work. You can't just read the book and call it good.
Right. Well, so tell me how this all began. You've been doing this how long now?
Oh, Dave, I have to say my age.
All right.
I mean,
give me
a while.
A while.
Yeah, let's say a while. So I was actually working as a manager for a consumer products division of Bristol-Myers Squibb in the Bay Area.
As a hiring manager.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I'll say in the early 90s to give you perspective.
All right.
I was recruiting part-time and full-time positions all up and down the coast from Washington to SoCal. And so I was on college campuses a lot.
All over.
And I was approached about year 2 from the career services director at University of the Pacific in Stockton.
Right.
And he said to me, "Why aren't you hiring my people?" And I was very honest. And I said, "Because they don't know what they're doing, Bert."
Ooh.
they're walking into the career fair with flip-flops on,
Right.
a ball cap, wearing tattered shorts. They don't have copies of resumes.
Man.
Oh my gosh. They would show up to interviews. If they did even get to the interview phase, showed up totally unprepared,
Right.
no questions to ask me.
Right.
And I said, I'm not going to hire you people until they can get their acts together, because I need them to be able to go in and work with my customers and present themselves with confidence and be well-spoken and all those things.
Represent the company.
Exactly. Exactly. So he said, okay, I'll make you a deal. Give me 1 year. You and I are going to write the career fair manual for University of the Pacific, and I will make sure all the students use it. And that's how Successful Impressions came to be. I realized the Bristol Myers Squibb probably wasn't going to fund my entrepreneurial activities.
Right.
So had to form an LLC, but it kind of went from there.
So again, the name of the business that you started?
Successful Impressions.
Okay.
Yeah.
So pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
And then tell me some of the obstacles that you faced in kind of spinning off your startup and going into business for yourself.
Well, that was an interesting path because, again, I was working full time in corporate America.
So you did it as a side.
It was a side gig for about 24 years, a really long time. But my business morphed over time. So started out, obviously, working with college students. That was my kind of safe zone, my wheelhouse. And I would reach out to organizations on campuses to offer my services to come and present and give them best practices. Partnered pretty quickly with the American Marketing Association on several campuses, and that kind of spun into a really nice collaborative partnership. By the way, pro bono.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you that.
Yes. To be a speaker for them on the national level and also contribute to their website and then work on campuses. That was really, really a great partnership. And then the company kind of morphed into one-on-one client management.
Okay.
And at one point I was working with 35 sorority women at different college campuses. That was a very interesting time in the business.
I bet.
It was very fulfilling to me as a sorority woman myself to give back and also to help these young women kind of find their path as they were getting ready to graduate and graduating from college and going into the workforce. So that was kind of the next phase of the company.
So did you stay, because being with Bristol Myers Squibb, it's in kind of the pharmaceutical sector. Was that your target, or did it matter what sector the kids were majoring in?
Yeah, no, that was, it really was irrelevant. It was whatever the students were pursuing. So it was kind of funny. Most of my clients never even realized that I had a full-time pharmaceutical sales position.
Right?
Because that really, that's the magic of being an entrepreneur, is that your clients feel like they're the only customer,
That's
right?
If you do it right.
If you're doing it right.
Okay. And then, so 24 years, are you still dual timing it? Or
I am not. I officially retired now 9 years ago from corporate America.
Okay.
And so very happily just an entrepreneur now, but also very busy with volunteering and other things that I know we'll be talking about. So.
Okay, sure. And then now, so what parts of the country do you find yourself in? I mean, people can find you online from anywhere.
Right.
And do you do remote support of clients?
I did for a long time. As I said, the company's morphed several times. Yeah. So one of the other iterations of the company after the 35 young women that I was working with one-on-one was to support post-secondary ed. And I worked with actually a for-profit university for a while and was nationwide. So that was when I was kind of balancing both corporate and entrepreneurship. So it was a little bit of Friday at 6 p.m., hop on a plane, go to wherever I was going to set up at 7 a.m. on Saturday, do a full day workshop with adults in the post-secondary sector from 8 a.m. until 4:30, head back to the airport and fly back to Phoenix and have my Sunday with my family. And that was about 3 years of my life. So,
So you would literally get up on Monday morning, go to your day job, probably work evenings on both
Yep.
your recruiting prep. Is that what you would call it, or
Yeah.
your interview prep?
Yeah.
Or okay, and then do that probably what till 7, 8, 10 o'clock at night every day,
Yep.
and travel on top of that, and do weekend shows all around the country
Yes.
for 3 years.
3 years.
That's the kind of commitment you have to make to
Yep.
be an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, right?
Yep. I mean, the reality is it can be a grind. And there's going to be times where I was also raising children. So,
Oh my
and my
gosh.
husband was traveling 4 days a week.
Wow.
So, there were a lot of nights where it's 1 a.m. I need to go to bed because I have a child waking up at 6
That's
in the
right.
morning, so I need to stop editing this book that I'm writing right
Right.
now. And I need to be
Prepare
mom.
yourself for
Yeah.
motherhood or
Yeah.
morning duties.
Exactly. And then being a working person in the workforce in pharmaceuticals for the day. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I will say the entrepreneurs that commit to having the balance and pace themselves well can be extremely successful. You don't have to have a nanny. You don't have to have a village of help. It's great if you
If
do.
you can.
I mean, if you've got that, leverage it.
Right.
I didn't happen to have that,
Right.
but you can do it. It may take you longer.
Right.
It might be baby steps,
Right.
but you can still achieve whatever the goal is.
Well, let's talk about that. That's something that we had discussed earlier. You were working with students, and I don't know. We haven't talked about my background in the EDU space as well, teaching secondary education level students or supporting them. My school did, and we had a lot of international students, or we had high school students in the U.S. that were homeschooled, and then getting them ready. That was a big differential in their acceptance to post-secondary, programs, schools. But it was a big discussion with us, with our students, and making sure they took those type of steps. Because when you're homeschool, you're working in the home, your social skills sometimes you're interacting very differently with your
Right.
teachers because they're not in your. We used to tell the parents they would be the facilitators. You make sure the kids go to school, log on. I'll make sure the teachers teach them. That's our
Right.
partnership, and our kids perform very well. Their academic levels were phenomenal, but again, their social interactions, we would work to make sure parents would put them in extracurricular things locally,
That's
sports or even or music or whatever it was, dance, whatever, to make sure those socialization skills were developing. But how to dress, how to prepare, how to organize, things like that. I mean, that's where you really kick in, and especially we had that challenge with the international students,
Right.
because they're now having to learn our culture and make sure when they're in front of that recruiter for the school or for work after they graduate that they relate in the way they present themselves to be the best candidate for the position available or the school acceptance. So
Yeah, and that's really it. That's where my business lies today, primarily.
Okay.
The biggest chunk of my business is helping those secondary ed students. So you had asked me, how far reaching is my scope at this point. It's really based in Arizona, and I'm working in 3 communities that a lot of people would say are underserved in terms of their students receiving resources especially around career search.
Okay.
So I feel
Yes.
like I'm providing not only obviously a service to the students, but also valuable information for their life skills.
Right.
In fact, it's kind of funny. One of the modules that I added 3 years ago is time management and communication with employers.
Okay.
And it really is that soft skill set of if an employer emails you and wants to schedule an interview with you, don't ghost them. You should respond.
Yes.
You should respond. Even if your response is, I'm not available at that time, or I'm no longer
Right.
interested, or this isn't a position that I'd like to apply
Right.
for, that's fine. But don't ghost them because you don't know who they know
Don't burn
that
those
you might
bridges.
be trying to get a job from down the
Right.
road, and now there's mud on your face.
Right. Interesting.
So a lot of those social skills that you mentioned are kind of woven into the curriculum that I teach so that the students are learning professionalism, maturity, confidence. One of the things I always tell the students is when you're going into an interview, who's the subject matter expert?
Right.
You. The interviewer is going to have no clue if you gave the wrong answer. They will have no idea. They won't know if you gave a partial answer. They won't know if you gave a bad answer. They won't know if you gave the best answer. So you've got to be the subject matter expert on you and represent yourself with the most facts and figures you can to show that you're a fit for the position.
I started from college. I went to Silicon Valley and started working in the semiconductor business. And we, at that time was, and again, I have to date myself, but it was in the 80s, and that was a brand new tech. It was a brand new sector. Tech was booming. It was sexy. It was fun. Hardware. Now it's software and AI and things like that. But and semiconductors are rebounding. They've certainly done well through the AI phase that we're growing into. But it's funny. We would recruit sales. Now I'm an engineer, so I started in the engineering department, went into technical marketing, and then into sales leadership. And our salespeople, we were so desperate to find salespeople because there weren't enough that we were pulling guys and gals with history majors and with,
I'm a sociology major, Dave. So
I'm not knocking it, but when you're selling a high tech product, we used to joke that the difference between a semiconductor salesman and a used car salesman is a used car salesman knows when he's lying to you.
Oh my gosh.
Because semiconductor terminology, technology terms, I can say the buzzword, but I have no clue whether, what it means and what it really does. I'm just saying, oh, sure, it does this, it does that. And so it was funny how often we had to go back and, like you said, the subject matter expert, we had to come back in and correct what was being said. So, we
did that a lot in pharmaceutical sales too.
Yeah, exactly. I can imagine.
My son, who actually is a doctor, says very frequently to me, Mom, you realize you never were a doctor, right? I mean, you didn't even play one on TV. And
That's
I'm like,
right.
yeah, I know. But I know this really big word that you just said, and I kind of know what it means. So I feel good about myself and my skills. So.
And I slept at a Holiday Inn
I
Express.
slept at a Holiday Inn, for
So
sure.
We're good. I
Yeah.
got this covered.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, this has been great. I hope we can talk some more on a couple of things. You mentioned pro bono work and maybe talk a little more about how the things you're doing for the students and both I'm sure the students leaving secondary ed levels going to post-secondary and students leaving universities and going to interview for their career positions. But entrepreneurs are basically students. They've got a great idea. They're learning. They're wanting to impress and influence people with their ideas, their products, their services. Those impressions matter when you're trying to start up your company. So we'll talk some more about that in our next episode. What I do like to do is ask you if you would like to give us what I call shameless plug and let people know how to find you if they're listening and they want to search you out.
Sure. So I would say first and foremost, you can go to my website. I'm sure Dave's going to have that somewhere on
We'll put
this.
it up, of course.
And then if you're interested in starting a internship program with college students and you need some best practices, definitely reach out to me. I will say I no longer do the one-on-one coaching.
Okay.
I am strictly in secondary ed in terms of that purview.
Okay.
But anyone who is looking for a job, who has been at it for a long time, and when I say a long time, I'm going to say 6 months. If you've been at it for 6 months or more and you have been trying to fly solo, it might be time to find a career coach.
Yes. Okay.
Reach out to an expert. They're all over the place. Phoenix has a bazillion of them. And those people, a lot of them are extremely well qualified and really can help direct you and focus you so that you can get the right job.
Okay. Well, I know I could certainly use a podcast host coach. So that's going to do it for us today. And please remember to follow whatkeepsyouawake.tv wherever you get your podcasts, and tell your fellow entrepreneurs to catch an upcoming episode. Thank you.